Striving for personal growth, I&M Bank is right here to support and empower you every step of the way. So the commitment extends to innovative solutions to impacting lives, because I&M Bank, your aspirations fuel your mission. So discover the power of on-your-side banking. Find out more at any I&M branch close to you. I&M Bank is on your side every step of the way, through and through. Find out about how you can have them on your side as well. Okay, so we're getting into our conversation for this hour. It's going to be an interesting ride, so stick here with us. There are a couple of headlines in the newspaper today. We'll be looking into some of those in detail as concerns this conversation that we're having this hour. But even as we get into it, we'll welcome our guest who's seated in the hot seat this morning. Janet Ouko is an education expert and director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition, and she's here this morning. Janet, good morning.
Good morning, Ndu.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
You know why I'm telling you well done? Because you've said my name very well.
Oh.
You've pronounced my name excellently.
I worked in Lagos for some time,
So now we understand. Okay. Don't worry. It's good. Welcome. Normally CT would give you today's proverb, but he's delegated his responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Slow down on that tongue. To Mark. Mark will tell you which country we're in this week. He'll give you today's proverb and then ask you to interpret that for us.
Okay.
And by the way, if you get it wrong, we remove. You said you're in school?
Yes.
We contact your lecturer and remove a few marks. Is that okay?
No, it's such a threat.
Well, there is no such threat, and your interpretation will absolutely be right. So we're in the country of Mozambique.
Okay.
And CT tells us that there's a group of 6 islands off the coast of Mozambique. They're called Bazaroto Benguera.
Okay.
Just
leave it.
Should I just spell them out, the 6 islands?
Because
I can't read any of them.
You just know there are 6 islands and leave them there.
Yeah, they've got hard names. It's like, say, Kumheleha. Say that first. Kumheleha.
Yes.
So by being grateful, a man makes himself deserving of yet another kindness. Yes, by being grateful, a man makes himself deserving of yet another kindness.
Okay. Have you ever has someone ever pestered you to send me money, and then you send them as little as whatever you have, say you send them a K.
I'm a man in Nairobi. Yes,
and then they don't respond now,
After the sending.
So it is you that now wonders, you had credit to call me when you didn't have, but now you even have 1,000 bob, and you can't even text me to say I have received. So how do you make of such a person? In future, if they call you, then you'll probably dismiss. So I think being grateful, even supports the giver, because a lot of the times we don't give from a place of having, we probably give from a place of sacrifice. So when you see the gratefulness that someone has really received the little gift that you have given, you get motivated and even sometimes even think that, really they were deserving. That's how I would interpret it.
I love it.
Oh, lovely.
Absolutely. It's a way to go into it. Hitting straight on the nose, and I guess that's why we have this conversation with you this morning. I want to share something in a headline, which then goes around the conversation that we'll have. Capitation in crisis. Okay, capitation first of all. Money that was supposed to go to schools as of 2025, where we are today, there is a 64 billion shilling debt. It's going to hit, but that's the truth in terms of capitation that was supposed to be released to schools over the last 5 years, right? It has never been complete. And when we get to a new year, we kind of forget about it and we say, okay, well, it's a new term. Let's see what we can pay for this term. We don't ask questions about how did these schools fare on with these students. We don't ask those questions, but, we just go into the new year. So hold that and park that. But now we are looking at inside secondary schools shake-up in preparation for CBC transition. For the first time next year, 2026, we will have co-curricular operation. What that means is that we'll have CBE in high school, and we will also have the outgoing 844 operating within the same school year for the first time since 1986. That is going to happen. But we're also seeing that there will be a shake-up according to what the ministry tells us in terms of the funding model, We also know that they will be going through 2 pathways. We also know that they're going to defund, the examinations. So many things are happening at the same time. And I've said for the longest time that we do have a system where education is in crisis, and there's too much that is not being done, and that the people who are suffering this are those who have to go through school for 12 years. I want to get your overview, first of all, as we get into this conversation. Why do we constantly why have we found ourselves in a crisis when it comes to education in Kenya?
Well, I listened to you when I was coming over, and I think at some point between 6:45 and 7, you discussed education in some bits, and it got me so agitated because honestly, even if you wanted someone to keep calm, there is no room for keeping calm. It is not okay to say that why do we not get it right always in education? Because I've been in this sector for 2 decades now, and have occupied spaces that have moved the sector to where it is now. And I can tell you that there is a certain time when we made progress in this country. So it is not true to say that why do we always get it wrong? No, we don't always get it wrong, because we got it right in 2003.
Okay.
When Kibaki was the president, and he made a decision that let every child come back to school.
Okay.
That man was coming from somewhere. That man was coming from a very solid understanding of what the philosophy behind education. And that man was coming from a global perspective. What are other nations doing in education? What did we agree in 1990 in Jomtien and Thailand? What did we agree in 2000 in Dakar? And you know very well that when agreements are made and countries sign these international treaties and agreements, they become part of our laws. And we are supposed to domesticate that. That is from where President Kibaki was coming from. And later on, his predecessor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, picked from there. He may not have done as phenomenal stuff, but one thing that we saw, he took the sector from where it was to a different level.
Okay.
Including sustaining whatever efforts that Mwai Kibaki had put in place. He tried to keep to that step.
Okay.
What do we have now?
What do we have now?
We have a reverse. Somebody who does not understand the philosophy of education, someone who is a profiteer, exists to make every decision that will add a shilling to his pocket. That is what we're having right now. And it is really painful to watch us go back to where we were, even before President Kibaki came in. I ran Tunza Mtoto Coalition.
Yes. And
Tunza Mtoto Coalition is really a grassroots network. I interface with learners, parents, every morning. And by the special grace of God, learners in this country and parents in this country, when they are faced with a problem, they probably find me as a voice that they can talk to. And so every day I receive calls, I receive messages, and and I've been glad because when I speak like this, I know I'm above reproach, because these are conversations I have had with the CS. These are conversations I have had with Kosgei, the chief of staff of State House. I have had these conversations with them. And I have sat in task forces and we have had these conversations. And I'm telling you, right now as we speak, last week, Peter Kibukosi, I'm just giving you this for background.
It's fine.
So that then even our listeners can understand where exactly are we and what dangers are we faced with, and where exactly is the problem? Because the problem is not the Minister for Education. He has got nothing to do here. He's not aware why money is not being sent to school, and that is a fact. He has got nothing to do. But there is one man sitting in State House pulling every string. He decides what is gonna be paid. He decides what is his profit, and we are operating from somebody who thinks that everything in this country should end up in his pocket or in his village.
Janet, are you saying that?
I am saying that.
Oh, you're saying.
Let me tell you, let me rationalize for me why today we are having BTOC as a PS for education. What is the sector going through? We are going through CBC, all these transitions and all that. You know that? In my view, very humble view for that matter, I expected someone who at least is familiar with the sector to be the PS education. That's what I expected. But imagine that right now, when we were having all these conversations about CBC, this guy right now being the PS for education was an ambassador somewhere in Pakistan. Just when we want to do the implementation, he was the PS, immigrations and everything else. So remote to the sector. But you know what? The PS for education, the biggest spender of Kenya's budget, has to come from Rift Valley.
Let's put
That is a criteria. That is the only criteria that we are applying. And that is why we refuse to have conversations with people who are pretending to have conversations with people, but they are mapping out places for where they want to eat. And they have no intention whatsoever to do the right thing. Let me tell you, why are we changing from NEMIS to CHEMIS today? Who are the business people who are the owners of CHEMIS? And why do we need to change for Christ's sake when the sector is going through so much reforms? Is this the time for introducing something new? Who said that we must change everything? You come in, you decide university funding is not working. We ask you, what in God's name was not working so that you decided to change to the new funding model? What was not working? Everything was working apart from the fact that you did not have an opportunity to eat.
Let me add
So
something
you decide to pretend you're changing so that you can create a gap for you to get your hands into our coffers. It is not acceptable. It is not okay. Right now, we see all over the papers that they want to change the secondary funding. A capitation model that has worked successfully, globally, tried and tested.
Wait.
You want to come and change it?
Wait, I see Janet came guns blazing.
Yes, she did.
Because it's not okay.
And on your train of thought, because you talked about the former president,
Yes.
Kibaki. The Minister for Education then was the late Professor George Saitoti.
Sure.
So when they began that whole process with the understanding of where education was, where it was headed, where did we start going wrong? Are you saying that decisions around the education sector are not made around stakeholders in education, but they're made from State House?
Absurdity is when I sat down last week and I listened to a PS Education presenting a budget in Parliament that did not have money for examinations. That is absurdity. Because it tells you, who exactly are you? Where have you come from? Do you not have background for why government decided to be paying money for NEC?
Yes.
Do you not have background? This is the background. Let me provide him with a background. It is because the amount needed, 800 Kenya Bob, for a child to register for KCPE,
Yeah.
many children cannot get that money. And that is a fact. That many children cannot get that money.
And it is a requirement for you to write this exam in
Yes,
order to move to
for
the
you to
next
transition.
Right,
Against a government that is lying to us that they're implementing 100% transition policy. How do you bridge this gap? That is the background. That levies worldwide are the biggest barriers to education. So governments across the globe are implementing policies that will ensure levies are excluded from the public education. So look at our peers sitting at a committee in Parliament presenting a budget that doesn't have like, what are you doing there? Go and make profit somewhere else. You are not fit for purpose. We don't want that kind of reasoning here. Education is a public good. You cannot afford to have people that think about education and think about profit simultaneously. It doesn't work like that. For you to sit to register for the Kenya Secondary School Education, KCSE, you need 5,000 shillings if you're doing the 7 subjects. If you're doing 8 subjects, you need 5,400 shillings. Many parents will not afford that money. And that is how government decided we are putting this money into, and that's why the capitation for secondary school is higher by far than that of primary school. Because 5,000 shillings, many parents, many learners will not do that exam. So why did we spend all the billions that we spend if we are not going to facilitate them to write that kind of an exam? And if as a nation we think that exam is important, then we ought to facilitate learners to sit it. Otherwise we do away with it and people just go through the education system and we don't administer examinations. That is where we undo. And that's why I'm saying we have people who have the wrong understanding. People who are profiteers, businessmen, looking at opportunities to eat. That is why the capitation has collapsed. That is why capitation has collapsed. Let me tell you, and you will one day call me a prophet. William Ruto is looking at a way of removing the capitation grant model. I have sat across tables with people who are his advisors. And you know what they're saying? Head teachers have been eating money. So what? So you remove head teachers to it, so you eat it. Leave us alone.
Let me ask a question, and let me play the advocate for the other side.
Sure.
The intentions of changing the university model, the changes they want to do to this from CBC to CBE, are positioned to us as better models than what was there before. So, for example, a certain Mr. Wino was seated right where you are in the previous hour, and made it very clear that in the university model, there is the government is paying 79%. And then the parents are left to pay 21%, which is better than what used to be there before. And the only issue is that the government on this side is unable to give in the money, but this model is better.
You know,
it
is incorrect. Yes, it is incorrect. That government, that's what I'm saying. I listened to Owino.
Actually, I was about to compliment you on the fact that how your face speaks honesty. Like this is coming from your heart.
Yeah, because I sat in the task team that the president set up the other day on this new funding model. And I can tell you for a fact, I really thank the people that put public participation in the constitution as a requirement. I don't know that they had seen that we will have people who will utilize that opportunity. Or let me put it this way. There are people who think that by being elected, when we elected them, we stopped thinking and we even delegated our thinking to them. No, we did not stop thinking. We only delegated our power to you, but we are still thinking. So we come into this with our heads as well. And we are telling you, the new funding model, for you to convince anybody that you need change, first of all, you need to tell us so well, whichever format that was being used of funding, how is it failing? And they were able to tell us. And from what was presented to us, I can tell you what was the problem. The problem is government has not been remitting money. That is the first problem. Government was not remitting their part of responsibility. Number two, government was not regulating universities. Government was not regulating universities. That's why today, Nairobi University, for an example, in revenues makes 9.8 billion Kenya shillings annually. It spends 9.6 billion on staff.
Huh?
If that is not insanity, yes, that's correct. Why will it not collapse? And I'm asking, show me the staff. Tell me, what are you talking about? Government stopped regulating universities a whole lot of time ago. When public institution froze employment, universities became the dumping ground. That is why you will have an entire village of more universities swept inside the payroll of the university. And it's crazy, it's unreasonable, it is not rocket science for you to look and say, really, this is not how institutions should be managed.
Yeah.
Tell me, walk around these universities and tell me who are the members of the council. And the council is the highest organ of the university, sort of the think tank.
Yeah.
But how do you pick retired, failed politicians, dump them in the council for the sake of getting allowances, and imagine that they will think for us? Universities stopped thinking a long time ago. And they're just politics. Politics has actually compromised a lot of things. And that's why I'm saying, if that is the picture of the problem, how do you think the solution is changing the funding model? If we've done the diagnosis and we're saying these are actually our challenges. So how do you think that changing the model will affect you? No, it is yet another lie.
Are these models being brought in? And we can look at funding model, whether it's at the university stage. We can look at the funding model, which is now being prescribed for 2026. We can look at curriculum change. We saw curriculum change in 2019. If you remember that at that time, the Cabinet Secretary for Education said, you guys, wait a minute. Let us pilot this thing first and see if it will work. No sooner had she said that, she was moved. Remember, this was in the Uhuru government.
Yes.
Right? And it is around that time that we started to see a dip in capitation being paid. This capitation problem that we see did not start with the William Ruto administration.
Now, let me correct you on that. The dip in capitation. If you're talking about dip in terms of getting it from 22 to now 16, and even not remitting that 16 is a William Ruto issue.
No. I mean
Not remitting.
Not
I mean,
remitting.
not respecting the 50%,
Yes.
30%,
Yeah.
20%.
I know that
It's a perennial problem,
we had
yeah.
22,475 odd.
Sure.
And then we came down to 17,000, and then after that it was 16,000 and such. We
Yes.
said that 5,000 was being retained at the ministry for whatever reason. God only knows where that 5,000 bob goes.
Yes.
That's a whole other conversation. But we did see that the non-remittance of the 50, 30, 20 actually began
Yes.
in the Uhuru Kenyatta administration. But here we are, we've gotten to a place where we're asking the question, why do we see so much in terms of change? And I have to ask that, do we see the introduction of these things with an original design to fail? Were they designed from the beginning to fail? Because it doesn't make sense to me, Janet, that you have an entire curriculum development institute. You have an entire ministry. You have some of the most educated, forward-thinking people who operate within this education sector in this country. And we can't seem to get two things right. Number one, a curriculum that works and can be implemented properly from point A to Z. And number two, you said the biggest spender, 600 and so odd billion. But we can't seem to take that money from here to here. And the people who suffer, always people who suffer at the end of the day, are these children. And I ask myself the question, why are we surprised when at the end of the day we say, oh, we don't have the proper result? What happened? This is what happened. All of this is what happened. So why do we get shocked that you put the ingredients to bake a cake and you get a cake? What were you expecting?
Part of why I am a big champion of capitation grants, and I have insisted that we cannot go any other way. There's a very big temptation of looking at all this budget. For example, when you're talking about 40 billion that is supposed to go to primary schools, the tenderpreneurs around there get very excited because of the breakdown of how that money is supposed to be spent. A chunk of it is supposed to go to teaching and learning materials. A chunk of it is going to be to operations and repairs and so on and so forth. And we have said as practitioners, this is the surest way of making sure, at least out of the 268 billion Kenya Bob, that from the national budget, the only money that I know surely hits the child is a capitation grant.
Yes.
The other money that I surely know hits the child is the money that is supposed to pay for teachers. That, because you can see teachers are in class, that is money that I know for sure. But these other monies that ministry insists on retaining, show me audit reports, and the little money that goes towards capitation. If you think how that money is spent, and I'm going to read for you the vote heads, for you to understand how little really it is and the difference that this money makes. For example, when talking about the 1,400 shillings at primary school level, can you imagine a meager 1,400 shillings is the amount that should go to a particular child per year?
What is it supposed to do, this 1,400 shillings?
There's for supposed to buy textbooks, supposed to buy operational, the chalk and so on. It's really so humbling to think about when you divide it per child, that 1,000, and you divide it into a whole year, because a year has 3 terms.
Yes.
It amounts to hundreds. It's hundreds. You could easily see that a child is supposed to spend 100 shillings on a particular budget line. It is that basic. And so looking at someone who thinks of capitation, because the thinking of this government, they have looked at education as a recurrent expenditure, which is a floppy way of looking at things, because education is a development expenditure. You are developing human capital. It can never be equal to recurrent expenditure. And it can therefore not qualify to be the one that suffers the most. Every other time you're thinking about budget cuts, you want to dash to the capitation grant, because you know why? Because these learners will never show up in the streets. Because the teachers will never show up in the streets, especially the heads. They're employees of government. Sometimes some of them reach out to me and they're like, please speak about these things, because there isn't anything that we can do. How do you explain that a certain president is sitting in office today? This is the 4th week of the 2nd term.
Yes.
And money has not been sent to schools. So why aren't those schools closed? Because what can operate without money? It is indirectly passing that responsibility to parents. And that is why you will be driving from home to work, and children are interrupting you crossing the road at about 10, at about 9.
But we pay.
Children are shuffling from home,
Janet,
shuttling from home to school.
But Janet, we pay. This is what I'm saying, that we pay. You see this money that we're saying that doesn't get to school in capitation? That there are public schools today whereby at the beginning of the term, new parents come and they say, hi, you understand the situation in the country? Right. So what is going to happen essentially is that at the end of it, we're going to add some 25,000, 30,000 shillings on top of the school fees, which you would ordinarily pay. What does that cater for? It caters for the gap in capitation that doesn't go to schools. So parents are still paying for that burden, and that's what I'm saying.
You know, last week, children from parents from Peter Kibukosia Secondary School reached out to our organization, and they told me, Uko, we have a problem. What is the problem? That we have 17 children who have not been registered for Kenya National Examinations Council. And I'm like, why haven't they been registered? Because they were sent away for school fees just before the registration. And so they're not going to sit for their examination, and the portal has been closed. That is one secondary school in Nairobi, Peter Kibukosia Secondary School. You can imagine how many more secondary schools out there that locked out learners from registering for the Kenya National Examinations Council. This is to just show you the magnitude or the effect, not sending money to schools.
What it does.
What is it doing to learners out there? And when you shamelessly stand on the microphone to talk to us about 100% transition, I really want some people. I want people to just have some little shame. You cannot talk to us about 100% transition, knowing too well that you have not sent money to schools. We know where the children are. Half of them are in class, half of them are on the road, half of them are married, half of them are in drugs. That is where we have gotten into. And we are saying it is not a very interesting conversation to have, especially because I know for sure 6 years away, we were not here.
We weren't here.
We weren't here.
All right. Well,
This is a man-made problem. There are people who have sat in offices, they have decided education and health are not important, because what is important, infrastructural deals that are getting money to our pockets, is what is important. What is important in education? It's a very big budget. So we get things to spend on. We want to change from NEMIS, we call it KEMIS. Meanwhile, who benefits? We want e-citizen so that we can get money from there. Please.
well, let's take a break at this point. It's necessary for us to look at where the issues are, but it's also important for us to shine a spotlight on what the solutions could actually be to this. I reckon that Janet has quite an interesting one in terms of solutions. We'll come back and look at that. It's 24 minutes to 9, I beg your pardon. Janet Ouko is our guest this morning. We're looking at the school capitation, the crisis, and what that is all about. We'll be back right after this break.
Dental tips brought to you by Sensodyne. The gentle touch. Did you know brushing too hard can damage your enamel and cause tooth sensitivity? Use a soft bristle toothbrush and Sensodyne toothpaste for daily repair and long-lasting protection.
Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protections against sensitivity. And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Unaweza kuwa saa hii unatembea, lakini kesho utakuwa na gari yako. Endelea kuweka bidii. Unaweza kuwa saa hii hauna food, lakini kesho Mungu akujazie sahani. Imagine analisha hadi ndege wa angani. Keep trusting the process and keep going. Hizo gari unapita kwa yard, siku moja utawa yako.
Dial *811*911# to get this as your skiza tune. KTN, ndio home.
As the eldest among the brothers, I am the first to carry on the family name and the weight that this holds. But beyond that, I am a man bound by responsibility to the people that I love. I am Sam Melby, and I play Dave Australia, the firstborn brother on the show Family Affair.
A family affair.
are back at it. Two men, born with the same chances, but shaped by different choices.
This land will be destroyed.
Brace yourself for an epic journey through the pages of the Bible as we bring you the gripping tale of the rich man and Lazarus.
Stop! You imposter! Get out! You false prophet!
Intertwined with other powerful biblical stories, our friendship once unbreakable, now poisoned by betrayal, greed, and desire.
You cannot get married to that woman. And who are you to tell me what I can and cannot do?
But beyond the veil of life, death stands waiting. One man will suffer in the flames of torment for eternity. The other will find everlasting peace in the arms of Abraham.
Father Abraham.
Who will fall? Who will rise? It's more than a story. It's a revelation. An extravaganza like no other. Only on KTN.
It started as a political promise, received goodwill, but the political impact was what we saw was massive enrollment, and the infrastructure couldn't support it. Then what again you saw was the scandals of embezzlement of FPE funds. So we opened up that space where we started seeing embezzlement of funds, and there was, the credibility around FPE was damaged at that point. Then, if we discuss higher education, it's another subject. Now, let's move to the Uhuru Kenyatta era, where the CBC now was introduced. Again, what we see in terms of reforms and the backtracking and the shifts in reforms and policy, again, the controversies around the control around money. So now we get to the current administration. And what we are seeing is the transitions being reviewed through what you'll call a presidential working party. Are stakeholders in the education sector genuinely involved in some of these things?
Well, Dennis, thank you for your question. And I think the involvement, and we've seen several court cases that really try to define or to refine what public participation really is. Because lately we've seen public participation being used to just pass up stuff, where the administration, it's called what? Interior Ministry of Interior, DOs and whatever, they're used to do that public participation. But it's not public participation that really captures the will of the people. It is where some certain people are given money to convene friendly voices. And I'll say this because the last time I think the Ministry of Education called for public participation on CBC, I made an observation, and I commented that you cannot call this public participation when half the hall is education officers. Half the hall is education officers. The other half is provincial administration, and that structure.
Gaffs and those, right.
You cannot do that. Yeah. Public participation is you go to a hall and you call parents, because in education sector, it is very structured. If you want to talk to parents, you know what to do. There are BOMs. Those are the structures. Have they ever been called and told, this is what we want to do? No. So what we have seen as public participation is something so convenient, and to just tick the boxes or to just check that, yes, we did it. But in actual fact, that we did not do that. And I want to come back to what exactly can we do. I do not want Ruto's administration to do anything. Let them leave education the way they found it. Just that. Don't change anything. Leave education how you found it. Go back to the Constitution. Implement Article 43. Implement Article 53. And implement Article 55. Is it so hard to ask? Can't you believe in the right of every child to education? Can't you ask yourself, sit in a table and ask? When the Constitution talked about every child has a right to education, what did it actually mean? Is it hard to ask the government to implement that? Is it hard to ask the government to prioritize implementation of education? Is it hard to ask the president to give us competent people at the helm of the ministry, especially considering where the sector is right now. Look at the CS we have for education, in all honesty. Good meaning man, he means well, but he's so remote to the sector. He has tried. Just when he's trying to get on his foot, you give us a brand new person, an ambassador in Pakistan when we were having all this conversation, then from the... Is there goodwill? You pointed out very well that when we talk about Kibaki, there is something, even if free education was a political, whatever project.
Yeah.
But we saw what it did to education. We know what Uhuru Kenyatta did for education, and especially maintaining that stability. He did not change a thing. He sought to actually improve what Mwai Kibaki did. Show me what we are talking about right here. Why can't you leave education the way you found it? If thinking is so hard for you people, why can't you leave education the way you found it?
Let me again ask from the other side. What if you read there's move from CBC to CBE, read Kefis to Nemis to Kefis.
Baptizing
Chemist.
projects does not make them helpful.
Just let me finish. What about what they say, that the changes they are making just need time, that these are teething problems, and if you give it a bit of time, it will be better?
3 years down the line, and you're still teething?
Surely this baby is
You're
eating
going to be
solid
toothless
food.
for life.
This baby is walking.
This conversation.
How do you teeth 3
needs
years?
someone-
How do you teeth for 3 years? Like tell me, practically even. How do you grow teeth for 3 years? You need to come to the fact that you don't even have ability to grow them. Yes.
You know, I keep going back to my skepticism around all these subjects. It appears to me we are not dealing with illiterate people. These are very
This is what I'm saying.
intelligent people.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There's something called organized chaos. And what thrives under that is when you keep people busy talking, when you keep people in a confused state, there is obviously somebody who's going to benefit. The cross-cutting themes across education tie in politics and political promises and what someone will call a legacy-defining tool, but you know where the benefits are going. And that's what I keep hearing. My question then is, if this is where we are, we can't change the person, what fix do we need?
I have never gotten to this point where I am now.
You're very angry.
I'm very angry because for me, I have an SMS here, which I can read for you.
Okay.
Please do.
That let me just get it as I go in here. That a parent in a slum called Mailisaba sent me a message, just a random parent, and they told me, please, if there is anything you can do, please do it. Please do it for us, because Oko, come to Mailisaba and see for yourself. Children are not going to school. My neighbor here has 3 children who have now taken since the opening. They just went for the first day and they were sent away. What do we do? If you like, I can call for you children at Saika Social Hall and you see how many children are out of school. For me, I get emotional because I know what we are talking about. And I know what William Ruto, the responsibility that William Ruto has for those children. I am not talking to Waziri Ogamba. No. I am talking to that person who has made it so hard to sustain critical sectors such as education and health.
Do you think there would be an intentional throttling or strangling of capitation going to schools? And I'm asking this in this light, that CS Mbadi sat here and we asked him this capitation question. He said, you promised us that money was going to come up by and this was, midterm last term. And he said, yes, well, the problems that we are dealing with is issues of, money that is available to Treasury. And we said, okay, well, this is interesting because you budget on money that you have, one would hope, or that sources that you're sure where this money would come from. And I want to look at intentionality. It's kind of segueing from what Dennis is saying here, that it seems as though the things we introduce from the very beginning are designed to fail. And so is that the thing that we're dealing with, a system that we already know from the beginning is not going to work? These things that we keep introducing along the line, shifting the model, domiciling, primary, lower secondary in primary, putting now higher secondary with pathways, which we're not even sure how that is going to happen. We have 9 months to do it, making math compulsory, coming back and saying it's not compulsory, saying it's compulsory all over again. All of these things, it just seems like every now and then we throw something in to stir the waters because we know that this thing is not going to work. Is it intentioned from the beginning that this is just chaos that we throw people in and then let them figure it out as they go? It seems as though there is an intent in this chaos, because if we have seen over the last 3 years that things have not worked, again, because we have qualified, seasoned technocrats at the helm of a lot of these organizations, KICD, the ministry, call it. Why is it so difficult to get these things sorted out?
I've worked with all those people. Brilliant human beings, but they are helpless. It is not them that are making these decisions. You got to believe me on that. A lot of them are as desperate as we are because they can see. They can see things crumbling right in their hands, and there is nothing they can do about it. I can tell you some of the people that sit in those ministries do not believe that there is anybody who cannot prioritize capitation grant. They just cannot believe it because it is sort of the cushion, what keeps children in school. And you know what? And that's why I said, for this ministry, I have zero advice to give. It is not that they lack it. It is just the lack of the goodwill to do the right thing. The goodwill to do the right thing. And I told you, tone at the top. When tone at the top really thinks that they can get around things. I was speaking to heads of schools before I came here, and they told us every Monday we are treated to a press conference. That money will be sent.
Yes,
to just keep us, through the week. Friday we are served another memo that there was this, So people are lying through. And I want to wonder, Parliament of this country, you passed a budget. At the end of that particular year, all these monies that will not have been sent to schools, does anybody bother to know what happened between the approved budget and the actual amounts that hit the schools? What happens in between here? It's a disturbing state of affairs. And if you think about the effect that this joking around has on the lives of people, on the lives of children, on the lives of household, is why some of us are getting so angry, and it's why some of us have gotten to a place where we are telling William Ruto, stop. We do not want you to do anything more for education. Leave it as you found it. Because anything you touch, he touched university funding model, something that was going so well. It was going so well, we don't even understand where he was coming from. He touched it. What happened? There was chaos in universities. And right now, there is little calm, which is pseudo, by the way, because they were able to dash to court, whatever they did in court, because today's headline is about captured justice. And the court said, you can go on, with the funding model. But I can bet them, from here I sit, new university funding model is not going to be implemented in universities. Why? Because I know what it is doing to the students. I know. I am in that task force and I know. We interviewed students and they are saying, I cannot. Because where should William Ruto government begin with? It should begin here. Ask, why is it that Moi University is charging 720,000 to do a medicine course? When in Makerere, it is 480,000. What rocket science is happening so that in Moi University we are doubling that cost? We must begin by disciplining ourselves as a nation and asking, why 720,000? What is happening in Makerere that is happening here? But you see, because he's a politician who wants to be comfortable with everybody, he does not want to offend the vice chancellor. He does not want to. He generally does not want to do anything. So that is why we are where we are. Instead of asking the hard questions and bringing down the cost of university education in this country to rhyme with our peers in the region. You cannot tell us that you're charging us because Harvard, we are aspiring to be Harvard. No, we are saying no. We are not going to buy rotten bread at the price of good bread because we want to grow the bakery. Nobody wants to do that. If bread is rotten, it is rotten.
I want to ask, because you've talked, you talked about, the tone from the top being the one essentially that, marks how the rest of the choir will sing. So are we saying essentially that if President William Ruto was not president, that we would miraculously see that this education sector, for starters, would then be sorted out?
It will, because we have evidence. He is not the first president in this country, is he?
No.
We have evidence that things have worked better. We are not saying that we have worked without challenges. No, we have had challenges. But this amount of challenges is unprecedented. We are not making any step forward, have we? Is there any step we have made forward? If there is, just say yes. There is no step we are making forward. We are just going back and back and back. I do not know where he plans to put the stop for us to go back.
Unfortunately, it's hard to find a progressive step in education over the last. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to find one.
And the only good thing that has happened is employment of teachers. Really, where it's good, we say that it is good. Employment of teachers has gone really well.
Yes.
And you know why? It's because of one girl that sat on that particular desk. And we are even risking. I'm telling you, this June, their recruitment of TSC head, I can bet you, William will mess it. Because for him, what matters is to get somebody who will give him 10,000 letters to go and dish in his village. I dare say that because we are warning him. TSC is working. Please don't touch it. Just let the institutions that are working work. Please.
Just a quick one. Parliament has been going crazy about the NGCDF. And of course, talking up the issue of bursaries and things like that. Now, when you talk about the rights issued to children, the right to access to education, the interpretation of the law is always that rights given should be effected by the government to their maximum.
Article 55.
Yes, that you should, if it's the article to freedom to association, you should actually make association easier and easier as time goes by. Now, my question to you is this. The ideal state is that education should be free. Correct?
It is not ideal. It is the right state.
It is the right state.
No, it's not an idea. No. It is the right state.
Good. So it is the right state. Now, if that is the right state, and we're talking about capitation is lacking, and on this side, every single government official, I think other than MCAs, women reps, and senators, I think the rest are crying for some form of bursary. So this government has to give out the disbursements that it needs to give. Then on this side, it's giving, what are they called, these things again? Grants and things for schools. Should these things be put together so that our kids have an equal playing ground closer towards free education?
Let me again demonstrate what I was talking about when I say that this government has bad will. Is that the first thing that we saw William did is to increase the budget for MPs for bursaries. You recall that?
Yes.
In his mind, tokenism, is how education should be run. And he's doing this to appease the members of parliament. Who does this? Who disables a systemic sort of managing education and get the money to tokenism, where there are no audit reports, and the audit reports that we have had, you've seen them flying all over the place saying we cannot even locate the names of the beneficiaries. There's no criteria for establishing who gets this. So the issue of equity is lost in there. Who disables a system systematically that was running, that if we all invested in making sure that the capitation grants ran, a child could only be bathed by their mother and they're taken to school. And they find everything there. That way, you don't need to know anybody. You don't need to know the member of parliament. You don't need to have their phone numbers. You don't need to queue for hours and hours in the sun, waiting for somebody to give you 1,000 Kenya shillings. But what does William do? He chooses tokenism to please members of parliament over funding a systemic system that is globally acknowledged and that has worked for us. We have evidence to that effect. It's over a decade plus that system has run. This is why I'm telling you, the person at the top is doing us so bad. He is prioritizing political maneuvering over governance. And that is a challenge that we have. Political maneuvering over governance. I challenged him today. By the time you came in, we were almost achieving 100% access to primary education. What is your legacy right now? When you walk around, you'll be greeted by children who are not in school. Is that your legacy, Mr. President? Something as basic as a primary education. You cannot afford the children of Kenya? What are you?
What does it look like in terms of what folks are? People are waking up every day. People are waking up and going to the ministry every day to work, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever. What's happening? What can we say that something is being done at the end of the day, that there's something to look forward to as we wrap up this?
Nothing. Nothing is being done. Nothing. I can bet you, nothing is being done. As long as money is in the hands of a few, as long as people stopped considering what is for the ministry, there is nothing else I want them to do. I just want them to do Article 43 of the Constitution, Article 53 of the Constitution, and Article 55. Just that. That what is a right. You know, we cannot, and I said, we cannot abandon the Constitution and we pick motivational quotes is what we want to run the country with. No? We cannot abandon the Constitution and we start running on a political party manifesto that has even crumbled in the first place. No, we insist. Can you run this country based on the Constitution? And education rights are not negotiable. They're not negotiable. Whether it was in your manifesto or not, we are not negotiating. The right to education of children is sacred. Please ensure every child, 0 to 18 years, is in a basic education institution that is fully funded, because that is what your predecessors did. You have no business coming in to mess a system that you found working.
Indeed. Janet Oko is an education expert and director of Tunza Mtoto Coalition. And this is one of those conversations where we have to leave it as it is. It's a lot to think about, and there's a lot of responsibility that lies on the shoulders of folks who are given the job to actually make this thing work. But, you know, Janet has said one thing from the beginning. The tone is set from the top, and that needs to happen. Thank you so much for being here this morning. It's necessary for us to put these things front and center, and we're glad that you helped us do that today. Asante Sana. Good morning, 9 a.m.